All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. And hi and welcome. I think we do have a few more people signed up that'll probably trickle in. I'll just go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Melody Hernandez. I am a grant consultant based in San Francisco. I primarily um, work on work with small to medium sized nonprofits, and very often am, kind of the working with folks who are newer to grant work or looking to build out new relationships with funders, often under-resourced organizations, and specifically with AI, maybe folks that are just exploring it and aren't using and are new to AI. And I'm co-hosting this with Fielding. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Fielding Jezreel. I primarily focus on federal grants for small and mid-sized nonprofits, so nonprofits with budgets up to about $8 million. And I do that through federal grant writing for clients in St. Louis, as well as teaching grant writers federal grants through a 12-month course. And when federal grants went haywire in 2025, I had a lot of extra time on my hands, and AI had just started to really shift in ways that I recognized would be useful to grant writers. And so I spent quite a bit of time in early 2025 trying to figure out how to apply AI to our profession. And so Melody and I have had an initial call where she was real mad, and I was trying to convince her that there may be some use in all of this nonsense. And so that's how these conversations got started. We're really glad to have everybody here, and we're happy to start with questions in the room. And then we did have get a couple of people who registered who I don't think are on the call yet, who had some questions. So I would love to start with thoughts or questions of people here, and then we can also answer some of those other questions and send it out in the recording. So I'll open the floor.
I have a couple questions.
Please.
Uh, I am AI, no experience really at all. I use it for my kids' math homework because that's what I need the most help with. But I teach grant writing and I do nonprofit consulting for small nonprofits. Um, and the question has started to kind of come up, especially in the grant writing classes, about um, kind of the best kind of tools both for the research and then how do you use it effectively for the grant writing without losing kind of um your own voice? Like I know there was ethical guidelines that grant professionals put out a couple years ago, maybe at this point, but I'm kind of wondering how it's shifted in the last year and kind of what tools are people using most?
This
Well,
is right in
I'm
my
gonna let
wheelhouse.
Yes, I'm gonna let Fielding address the tools part, but I'm gonna tell you, David, that actually we do this once a month. And next month our topic is going to be how to keep your voice in AI.
Oh,
Because
cool.
I highly encourage you to come back, but we will touch on that a little bit today. But yeah, Fielding, go ahead with the software piece.
Yeah, so let me start by saying I think the Grant Professional Association's statement on ethics falls short of being helpful, if I'm real blunt about it. I don't think it is specific enough to apply consistently. And so I think we are left with this like very murky gray area of how to sort of navigate a lot of ethical considerations. So I just want to say that because I think it's very real that we all just need a little bit more guidance and support in navigating. And that's part of the reason these conversations exist. So, um, in terms of tools, if you had asked me 6 months ago when we started having these calls, what do you use? I would say ChatGPT. Pick it, use it, and just go, right? Like try to learn a single tool. I still am a believer that you should pick a tool and just go all in figuring it out because these tools leap one another every few months, right? So I was a big believer in ChatGPT 6 months ago. I would say kind of low on my list these days for a variety of reasons. But have I abandoned my account? No, because I think it's going to leapfrog over, some of the other tools again in the near future. So I don't know. It's a little tricky. So now my response is more, what is your existing tech stack and how can you use the tool that makes the most sense for your existing tech stack? What I mean by that, if a nonprofit primarily uses Google Drive, you should use Gemini because the ability to transfer your information from Gemini into your Google Drive is so, so easy. We're not copying and pasting things. We're not dealing with formatting issues anymore. Like we can do all of that inside Gemini and then just save it to the drive. So in some ways you need to think about, okay, what am I really trying to achieve? If you are thinking about an LLM for your business and you aren't on Google Drive, I like Claude Cowork. So I think Claude has, and it's getting a lot of attention right now because Cowork is really solid and very robust. Again, you sort of deal with these tools are gonna, there's gonna be this huge growth in what a tool can do, and then all the other tools can be like, oh yeah, next on market, I'm gonna do that too, right? And so I think we're just gonna see these tools continue to leapfrog each other. So I would still sort of go back to what makes sense for the organization or the business that's trying to do the implementation. For a long time, Copilot was pretty awful. That was the one that I'd say don't use if you can avoid it. I'm warming up to it. I still don't think it's as good as the other tools. Part of the reason it's not as good is, and you'll see this with Gemini as well. Both Gemini and Copilot, right, are part of a larger software system that has to be protected. So if these tools implode, right, those companies have a much higher risk of hurting other products, unlike OpenAI, right, who is essentially an LLM, at least at this point. And so we see Claude and ChatGPT typically leading the field in new features, new offers because they're less risk averse because they're protecting less other assets, right? So I would say those are like the big four. So the big four being ChatGPT, OpenAI, Claude, Gemini, and Copilot. So I think those are the four that you're most likely to compare. And I would still say Copilot's maybe not the best idea, but so many organizations, because they've already invested in Microsoft products, it may make sense. At this point, again, this would have been different 6 months ago, but at this point, you can pretty much build the same architecture in all four of those, whereas you used to only be able to do it in ChatGPT. So Claude Cowork now allows you to have things like projects similar to ChatGPT. So, and then I briefly want to address your last question around maintaining voice. We are going to go into this a lot in the next session because there's a lot to be thinking about. You have to know how to train AI. If we treat AI like it is a taskmaster with no instructions, no context, yes, it's going to sound super generic. So the emphasis on prompting, I think, has hurt grant professionals' understanding of how to control AI. And so I often like to say to clients, so I set up AI tools for clients. One of the things I like to say is, if we can get your instructions and your context nailed down, like context is the files, the knowledge base, right? If we can get those things nailed down, your prompting can be pretty bad. But it has to know what it is supposed to do. And so Melody and I were joking before folks got on that, like, if you have a set of instructions in a project that says return a 4-paragraph response every time I ask you for something, you're going to get a 4-paragraph response for everything because that's what you've told it you want. But if the project doesn't know it's supposed to be writing grants and you haven't told it how to write a grant, of course the grant looks generic because it's just guessing the next best word, right? It's just probabilistic, right? So it doesn't know how to think. It doesn't know how to guess what you need. And so, when I think about, okay, how do we keep the soul of our language? Well, you got to give it that soul. You got to tell it what it is. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about that next time,
Yeah,
how to do
and
that.
there are very specific ways to like give it a voice. And we'll go into that more next time. So I hope you're able to join, or we do record these and then, we put them on LinkedIn. If you're not following us on LinkedIn, that would be a great way. We'll also send some follow-up emails and things. But yeah, basically, you're going to give it a document that says, this is the voice I want things in, or like a voice imprint kind of thing. Um, I do want to say, uh, there's a lot like I am the reluctant AI user, right? I'm using it. I would say I was an anti-AI user until Fielding was kind enough. I wrote a blog for her that was called "Fuck AI and the Horse That Rode In On," and that was my stance on AI because
That's where I'm at now. Yeah.
yes, and because I had seen AI used badly, and then Fielding was like, "Well, have you ever thought about trying to actually use it well?" Like that's an option, right? At that time, I think Claude was looked upon as being maybe the better, I don't know if like ethical choice is the right word, but then they actually stepped back on some of their more ethical things. So at this point, um, I do like to voice that AI, there's not really a great ethical choice right now as far as like they all are kind of plagiarizing and things like that. There's also not a great environmental approach. They all suck when it comes to environmental things. So if you're going to use AI, use it well, right? Learn how to use it well so that you're not, you know, using it, you're using it more like a laser pine thing. It's, to me, it's the concept of turning the tap water on to get your toothbrush wet and then turning it off when you brush your teeth, right? Like use it for the very strategically for the things you need to use it for that actually help reduce maybe some of the footprint that you'd be using. So basically, if you'd be sitting there, an analogy I've heard before, if you're sitting inside an air conditioning in front of a computer writing for several hours, something that it could do in a few minutes, then maybe that's a good environmental exchange, right? So learn how to use it well so it's saving you hours of time. Um, and then you're able to also be less frustrated about it is part of it as well. So I think part of it is understanding that, of these big main four, they are, these are products of different like companies, right? So the product is ChatGPT, the company is OpenAI, the product Claude is Anthropic. That's one that I've seen some funders using. Tipping Point here in San Francisco just announced they have a partnership with Anthropic. So I don't know if there is a benefit to saying, well, if funders are using this specific one for their review of it, maybe it's better to use that one for the writing. I'm not sure. Fielding, I don't know if you know if there's anything to that. I'm guessing they might be biased towards their own. Maybe. Claudia, I see you have a hand up though, so go ahead.
Yes. Hi, how are you? I'm Claudia. I'm the founder and executive director of Latin Advocacy Network. So we provide legal immigration services. And actually, we have an AI project. So we develop a system. Well, I do the legal work, but we have a couple of AI engineers and they are the experts. But what they did is that they create a system where our clients can call and they receive like very friendly communication, and the system collects the information, translates it, and self-populate the forms for the immigration office. And for us, normally this process takes like 3 hours, and a person has to. We work mostly with farm workers, so they lose a day of work. They have to travel. They spend a lot of money. So they can now do that 24/7, even on Sundays or Saturdays or after hours. And for us, it means instead of spending 3 hours, completed a very automatic form that just, date of birth, when did you enter the country? Of course, it's technical, and there are like many parts that are very important, and that's why we use the friendly language. But it saves us like hours, so we can focus on the strategy of the case instead of the forms, and then we can help like now our volunteers, instead of be trained, or the people that is helping us, instead of be trained on completing these forms, they are trained to review the forms and help us with the research for the strategy. So that's what we've been doing. And I shared this with another meeting that we have with executive directors of nonprofits here in San Francisco. And they told me to come to this meeting and to learn more about how you guys are using the AI on your, like, not only grant writing, but also like during the day-to-day work. Because what I did with my team is like I put a document with all our workflows just to understand, like, for example, when we receive a mail, like what do we do, or an email or a communication from a client. And we are thinking of ways how we can make this automated. So that's like the way that we wanted to use AI for our office. So I was curious if you guys have any experience on that. Like I heard like some people were using AI to answer emails, which freaks me out. And I think like that's something that it's like next level. Probably I won't be doing that yet. But I'm curious if that's something that is working for anyone.
Yeah, so I think part of like, with the analogy of like turning on the faucet tap to get your toothbrush wet, like that is, part of like figure out what AI is doing well with grants right now and what how you can set it up for success. So David, I think you specifically mentioned funder research, right? And I think Fielding and I are both in agreement. It's not great at that. That is maybe not the way to invest your resources in grant work. One of the questions that we specifically had was about how to use AI for NOFOs and RFPs. And that is actually a much better use of it. Is so you want to apply for a specific grant. And now, generally we might take hours. I remember that big DCYF one. David, did you do that one if like last year or whatever it was? It was like
No,
100.
it scared me, so I
Yeah,
didn't.
I took a full day to read through with my highlighter and highlight every single thing in there because it was such a beast of an RFP. I crossed off a full day for that, right? And Fielding, I think you have some great strategies for that piece of it, for
Yeah.
NOFO and RFP kind of vetting whether or not you should apply or, give me the important information out of this, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's where I have found, or one of the ways that I found the most time savings because I'm in federal grants, I'm assessing RFPs, all the time. Even in order to get on a call with a client about a specific funding opportunity, to even price it out, right? I have to know what's in this RFP to be able to have a sales call to assess whether they're even ready because I'm not going to charge them money if they're not ready. And so that often was a 2 to 3 hour process for me, if not longer, before I've even gotten on the call to find out if they're going to move forward. And so I did create initially a custom GPT and then built it in another system. But I have 10 years of documents that I've created, and I, over that time, have settled on a very standard overview that I prepare for clients, right? So, um, basically, my training documents for that particular project are, instructions on what it is supposed to do. So you are summarizing and assessing our federal RFPs. Here's the information you're gonna find. You're going to cite what page of the RFP you took it from, so I can double check it. You're going to identify, in addition to identifying these, standard categories of information, identify potential red flags for medium-sized nonprofits because that's typically who I'm working with. So there's all sorts of things you can do. And now, literally, I will have a sales call scheduled and I will run it through that system and have an output in, 2 minutes, and be able to hop on that call and have a coherent conversation about whether this is really a good fit for them based on things like the funding amount and whether match is required and what are those potential red flags and what are the required implementation components. And so I think that's the most common time saver, significant time saver that I found. I also have projects set up for each one of my grant writing clients that are populated with a standard set of documents that I've decided on. And this is what I also do for customers who want to just buy an AI product as opposed to have me write their grants. But we're populating it with all the things that a grant writer would reference in order to write grants. I give it instructions on how do you actually write a grant, because can AI make assumptions about how to write a grant? Sure, but that's generic. And I have 10 years of experience. I have 12, whatever, 12 years of experience. The way I write a grant is maybe different than what you might Google, or what AI is going to identify as sort of like the middle road of how to write a grant. Because again, it's just probabilistic, right? It's not going to any particular blog and copying and pasting the instructions unless you tell it to do that, right? And so you just have to be really careful about making sure that you center your knowledge and experience and the organization's information, because once it has all that, it's actually pretty good at understanding the voice, understanding, the different components that it should be pulling from, but you have to set it up for success.
Yeah. So I think that is a huge part of it, is like like Fielding said, you gotta, kind of pick a system and then really invest in that. There's a lot of upfront time and effort. And what I see folks doing too often, which was making me very frustrated with AI, is without having invested any of that into building out the system well, they would just hop into oftentimes the free AI, ChatGPT, which I think one thing we didn't mention is when we're talking about using ChatGPT, we are referencing using the paid version. The free version, it's, there's less security, there's less, it's just not as good, right? But that, and just saying, giving it a sentence and saying, write me a project plan or write me a grant about a, after school, art class, right? Like, of course, you're going to get generic information. You haven't given it anything specific to work off of. You haven't, it's only can give generic information. I was on a review panel for a state arts grant that had folks had to submit their strategic plan. And we had a group phone call of all of us reviewers, and everybody, like a lot of these, their strategic plan is literally like identical, because they all just said, hey, I'm a small arts org, ChatGPT, write me a strategic plan. Right? Like, it was very obvious that it was done. Now, if you took the time, if we think about a strategic plan taking maybe to get a really good strategic plan, maybe it's going to take you 100 hours. So isn't it worth spending at least 5 hours crafting what you're putting into this ChatGPT to give it something that's actually specific to you, right? But that you're still having to give it information. It's not like Google, you're not just getting information, you are giving it a lot of information to them. It is an exchange, of information that is happening. So basically, helping, it's not really great at saying, hey, I'm a, again, like an arts program in San Francisco. What grants should I go for? It's not good at that. But once you have a grant that's on your radar that you think I might want to go for this, it is good at vetting. If you set it up well, whether it's a federal grant or a foundational grant, you can set it up to vet, tell me if this is a good fit for us specifically. What are the red flags, right? Are we eligible, right? Things like that.
And I would say, Melody, you'd want to put instructions in that project that define what fit means.
Yes, exactly.
Because again, you don't want to rely on AI knowing what you know unless you tell it what you know.
Yeah.
So if again, they fit, you're going to get something that looks close. And this is where we get into uncanny valley, right? It looks close enough that you're like, oh yeah, this is great. But in reality, you've missed whole categories.
Yeah.
Because you know more than AI does. You really do.
Yeah. And by default, AI is a sycophant. It is trying to please you. It's trying to say, yes, this is a great fit. Go for it. And it doesn't realize that it's just wasting your time. Right. Like, so that's the other thing, kind of programming it to be like, don't kiss my ass, right? Like, don't tell me what you think I want to hear, right? Like,
or let it and then prompt it, poke holes in this.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
You can actually ask it. So that's actually another thing, talking about what we're actually using AI for as grant professionals who use AI. It is, helping vet opportunities that are already on our radar, like, or like give us the, we're going for this grant now, we know, but look at the RFP and, pull out the high level information that we need. It is asking it, giving it a grant and telling them, where are the flaws in this grant proposal, a final draft. It is also taking a really well-written grant that you have and saying, now take this same information and make it, you know, answer the specific stupid questions this other funder has, right? It's not great at first drafts though. So that's where I think that's the other flaw. I've seen people use it a lot is like giving it a small bit of information and asking it to, write the full grant proposal first draft. And then again, you're going to just get very generic information. So I find it better to give it the first draft and then to tell me, I always ask it, where am I being overly redundant? Because sometimes the questions are overly redundant. So then my answers are overly redundant. I'm the queen of writing a half finished sentence. So I'm also like, where did I not finish a sentence? I'll be writing at one answer and then be like, oh yeah, this one, right? And then sometimes I don't catch it when I'm reading. So it's a lot quicker. I have to like really pay attention. So it's a lot quicker to say, AI, where did I not finish a sentence? Just tell me where I need to pick up, right? Um, and also doing a mock scoring, it does, I mean, I personally think it does pretty well at, at least letting, like, and I'll often ask it, if what is the weakest response? Because sometimes it'll be like, I want to, maybe it's just like a matter of time. I have time to really focus on strengthening one of these, if there's 5 questions that are each worth 10 points, like which one, if I had to spend my time on one, which one would it be? Right. So those are what I think. I know we're close to time. And Fielding, I think you have some resources that and this is the other thing, like this does take a lot of time to build it out. And I think I'm appreciative when folks like Fielding take that time to build out some of this stuff and then offers it to us to use. I think it's really helpful to look at how somebody else has designed something as a framework for, even if you want to do it yourself, somebody who sat down and spent hundreds of hours of their own time building it out, at least then you kind of know, oh, this is kind of the information I have to feed it. This is a format that works well. So I would suggest you at least take a look at some of Fielding's resources that she has available on her website that I think you'll be sharing in the follow-up email, right?
I sure can.
And
Yep.
I hope y'all join us next month. You'll get an invite for specifically about using finding your voice with AI, making sure you don't lose your voice when using AI. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. That was super helpful.
Oh, yay. Thank you. It's good to see you, David. Come by sometime to the co-work.
I'm trying,